John Carter wiped down the counter of his board game cafe for the third time that hour. Business was slow on Tuesday afternoons, which gave him plenty of time to organize new arrivals and plan weekend events. The Seattle rain tapped gently against the windows, creating a cozy atmosphere inside Tabletop Haven. 5 years ago, John had left his military career behind. Strategic planning for missions had given way to organizing game tournaments and teaching newcomers how to play. He found more joy in bringing people together over dice and cards than he ever had in uniform. The bell above the door jingled. John looked up, expecting to see a regular customer seeking shelter from the rain. Instead, he froze. The figure in the doorway was definitely not human. It stood about 7 feet tall with iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the cafe lights. 4 arms emerged from a slender torso, and large almond-shaped eyes blinked sideways at him. John Carter of Seattle. The voice was melodic and came from somewhere near what John guessed was a neck, though no mouth was visible. "That's me," John replied, surprised at how steady his voice sounded. His military training kicked in automatically. Assess, adapt, remain calm. The creature stepped fully inside, followed by 2 more beings of different appearances. One looked almost like a tall, thin human, but with golden skin that glowed faintly. The other resembled a collection of floating orbs connected by strands of light. "I am Ambassador Zix Tora of the Alfaxi Collective," said the blue being. "This is Representative Aelm of the Moravian Consortium and Hive Speaker Tulla of the Vrilka." John reached slowly under the counter, where he kept his phone. "Your communication device will not function correctly right now," said the golden-skinned being in a voice like chimes. "We have established a privacy field. Please do not be alarmed." "We come with an invitation," Ambassador Zix Tora continued. "The Galactic Union has observed Earth for 73 of your years. We have decided the time for official contact has arrived." John looked around the empty cafe, wondering if this was an elaborate prank. "And you came to a board game cafe in Seattle instead of the United Nations because..." The floating orbs rearranged themselves into a new pattern. A gentle humming sound emerged before forming into words. "Recreation is the true measure of a species." Ambassador Zix Tora gestured with 2 of its 4 arms. "The Hive Speaker is correct. Diplomacy and trade agreements are formalities. How a species plays reveals their true nature and values." John slowly came out from behind the counter. "So you're saying you came to Earth to play games?" "The Galactic Union maintains peace through cultural understanding," explained Representative Aelm. "Each new species hosts a recreation night to demonstrate their leisure activities. It is tradition." "Okay," John said, trying to process everything. "But why me specifically? I'm just a guy who runs a game cafe." Ambassador Zix Tora produced a small device that projected a holographic display of newspaper articles and social media posts. They showed John winning regional chess tournaments as a teenager, his military commendations for strategic planning, and reviews of his cafe. "You understand both competition and cooperation. You explain complex systems to novices. You create environments where diverse individuals interact peacefully," said Zix Tora. "Our analysis indicates you are ideally suited to represent humanity in this important cultural exchange." John ran a hand through his hair. "So what exactly would I need to do?" "Each species in the Galactic Union hosts a game night showcasing their recreational activities," explained Representative Aelm. "Humans will host 6 months from today." "6 months," John repeated. "And this is happening regardless of whether I agree." The aliens exchanged glances. "Contact was inevitable," said Zix Tora. "We offer you the opportunity to shape how it unfolds." John took a deep breath. He thought about all the games lining his cafe walls, each one a little window into human creativity, strategy, and social dynamics. "I'll need help," he said finally. "You may assemble a team." Zix Tora agreed. John nodded. "Then I know exactly who to call. My friend Olivia Wright develops video games. My cousin Daniel Flores is an anthropologist who studies play across different cultures. And Susan Morgan is a physicist who designs puzzles in her spare time. Excellent, said Zix Tora. We will return tomorrow to begin your orientation. After the aliens left, John stood alone in his cafe. Outside, rain continued to fall on a Seattle that had no idea its place in the galaxy had just changed forever. He pulled out his phone and looked at his contacts. Well, he muttered to himself, this is going to be one hell of a game night. John's first trip into space happened with no warning. One moment he was standing with his friends Olivia, Daniel, and Susan in his cafe's storage room, and the next moment they were in a large, circular chamber with walls that seemed to shift colors. I think I'm going to be sick, Olivia said, steadying herself against a wall that felt strangely warm. Daniel's eyes were wide as he turned in circles. Teleportation. Actual teleportation. Susan was already examining the floor with intense interest. The physics of this, it's impossible. Ambassador Zix Tora glided into the room, all four arms holding different objects. Your bodies will adjust shortly. We have arrived at the Galactic Union Recreation Hall. Over the next few weeks, John and his team attended game nights hosted by different alien species. Each session left them more amazed and confused than the last. The Alfaxi games took place in zero-gravity chambers. Players had to solve complex math problems while floating and spinning. John spent most of his time trying not to throw up, while Susan actually scored decent points. Their idea of fun is calculus in zero-G, Olivia muttered after their session. No wonder they think humans are primitive. The Vrilka games were even stranger. The floating orbs connected directly to the humans' nervous systems, letting them experience a shared consciousness during elaborate hunting simulations. That was intimate, Daniel said afterward, looking shaken. Did anyone else feel like we were all one big brain for a while there? John nodded. It was like being part of something bigger. No secrets, no private thoughts. And that's recreation for them, Susan noted. Complete mental unity. The Moravian games proved the most challenging. Their games had perfect information with zero randomness. No dice, no shuffled cards, nothing left to chance. Every move could be calculated if you were smart enough. After losing his 10th consecutive match to a Moravian child, John asked, "Don't you ever get bored knowing who will win from the start?" The golden-skinned Moravian looked confused. The point is not to discover who wins, but to appreciate the beauty of perfect play. After each game night, John noticed something important. When aliens lost games, they never showed anger or disappointment. They simply analyzed what happened and learned from it. They didn't trash talk or gloat when winning. Their emotions stayed even and controlled. One evening, back in their provided quarters, John's team gathered to discuss their experiences. Human games are fundamentally different, Daniel said. Our games have chance elements like dice and cards. We bluff and deceive as strategy. Olivia nodded. And we get emotional. We trash talk, we cheer, we get upset when we lose. We value creativity over perfect execution, Susan added. Look at games like Pictionary or charades. The fun comes from imperfect communication. John paced around the room. So you're saying our games might seem primitive to them? Or worse, Daniel said quietly. Our games involve deception, gambling, elimination of other players. Some aliens might find that morally troubling. The realization hung heavy in the air. Their job wasn't just to teach aliens human games. It was to make sure those games didn't paint humanity as deceptive, overly competitive, or aggressive. Later that night, Ambassador Zix Tora requested a private meeting with John. You seem troubled, the alien observed. John sighed. I'm worried our games won't make a good impression. Human recreation often involves competition, chance, even bluffing. Zix Tora's skin rippled in what John had learned was their version of thoughtfulness. Different is not lesser, the ambassador said. But I should inform you of something. The The Recreation Council has already flagged certain human activities as concerning. What activities? John asked. Your competitive sports where injury is common. Your reality entertainment shows that encourage conflict. Your gambling establishments. John felt his stomach sink. So we're already starting with a disadvantage. Let us say your species has a reputation to overcome. 6. Tora's eyes blinked sideways. The game night you host will be very important. John Carter. More important than you know. As John returned to his quarters, he realized the stakes were much higher than simply teaching aliens to play Monopoly. The future relationship between Earth and the galaxy might depend on how well game night went. No pressure, he whispered to himself. Back on Earth, John converted his apartment into a war room for game night planning. Every wall was covered with lists, charts, and pictures of different alien species. In the center of his living room sat a large table with dozens of board games stacked high. Okay, let's go through our options again, John said, looking at his team. They had spent the last 3 days arguing about which games would best represent humanity. Susan held up a folder with neatly organized papers. I created a test matrix. Each game gets scored on complexity, strategy, chance elements, physical requirements, and fun factor. Let me see that. Olivia grabbed the folder and frowned at the charts. You gave Jenga a fun factor of only 4 out of 10. That's criminal. It's a tower of wooden blocks, Susan said with a shrug. You pull them out until it falls. The math is interesting, but the fun is limited. Daniel interrupted before an argument could start. Let's focus on eliminating games we definitely shouldn't use. Chess is out, John said firmly. It's too similar to Moravian games but way less complex. We'd look like children playing with blocks compared to their versions. Monopoly is definitely out, Daniel added. Do we really want aliens to think humans enjoy games where the goal is to bankrupt your friends and family? What about poker? Olivia suggested. It's strategic, mathematical, and uniquely human with a bluffing element. John winced. I'm worried about how aliens will view deliberate deception as entertainment. Remember how open the Vrilka were with their thoughts. They might see poker as deeply unethical. Video games, Susan offered. Too many involve simulated violence, Daniel said. The Galactic Union already has concerns about human aggression. Let's not show them games where shooting things is fun. This is impossible, Olivia groaned, dropping her head onto the table. Every human game has some element that could make us look bad. John stared at the game stacks thoughtfully. Maybe we're approaching this wrong. Instead of finding the perfect game, we should showcase our diversity of play styles. What do you mean? Susan asked. Different stations with different types of games, John explained, standing up and pacing. Some cooperative games, some strategic games, some creative games, and some purely social games. That could work, Daniel said slowly. We could have stations that highlight different aspects of human play. For cooperative games, we could use Pandemic, Susan suggested. It shows humans working together to save the world from disease. For creative games, Pictionary or Dixit, Olivia added. Those show our imagination and ability to think abstractly. Settlers of Catan for strategic games with light competition, Daniel said. It has trade and resource management without direct conflict. And for social games, something like Werewolf that shows our ability to read each other and work with incomplete information, John finished. The team spent the next several hours selecting games for each category and planning how to explain them to alien visitors. John felt the first stirrings of hope. Maybe they could pull this off after all. That evening, as the others left, John received a message on the communication device Zix Tora had given him. It was from a junior Alfaxi diplomat he had met during their game sessions. Human John, I feel I must warn you. The Recreation Council has been monitoring Earth broadcasts more closely since selecting you. Several members expressed concerns about your species' competitive nature after viewing your sports championships and reality competition shows. Your game night is now considered a final assessment of humanity's readiness for full galactic membership. Choose wisely. John read the message twice, then slowly set the device down. The pressure had just increased dramatically. It wasn't just about making a good impression anymore. It was about proving humans deserved a place in the galactic community. He picked up his phone and sent a text to his team. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Stakes just got higher. The space station provided by the Galactic Union orbited Earth like a shining silver ring. From the observation deck, John could see the blue-green planet below, clouds swirling across its surface. He still couldn't believe he was in space, preparing for an event that might determine humanity's future in the galaxy. They gave us 2 weeks to set up, Susan said, joining him at the window. That should be enough time if we work constantly and never sleep. John smiled despite his nerves. Let's start by checking out the main hall. The central room of the station was enormous and sterile. White walls, white floor, and bright lights gave it the feeling of a hospital rather than a place for fun and games. This won't work, Olivia said immediately. It feels like we're going to perform surgery, not play games. We need to make it feel like my cafe, John agreed. Warm lighting, comfortable seating, maybe some music. Daniel nodded. Games are about the experience, not just the rules. We need to create the right atmosphere. Over the next few days, the team transformed the space. They brought in softer lights that could change colors. They arranged comfortable seating areas with tables of different heights. They set up a small kitchen area to prepare snacks and drinks from around the world. Food and games go together in human culture, John explained to Ambassador Zix Tora, who had come to check their progress. Breaking bread together creates bonds. Fascinating, the ambassador said, watching as Daniel hung fabric decorations to soften the room's hard edges. Most species separate nutrition from recreation. As the space took shape, new problems emerged. Susan discovered that some alien species couldn't hold human game pieces with their appendages. Others saw in different parts of the visual spectrum, making game boards invisible to them. We need to adapt everything, she told the team during their nightly meeting. I've been working on adjustable interfaces for different physiologies. Olivia had been coding day and night. I've developed digital versions of most games that can adjust colors and sizes for different visual systems, she said, dark circles under her eyes. But some aliens don't use screens the way we do. I've been creating context guides, Daniel added. Short explanations of each game's cultural significance and history. Did you know Monopoly was originally created to demonstrate the negative effects of private monopolies on land? John nodded. And I've been modifying rules to make games accessible to species with different cognitive processing speeds. The Vrilka think 100 times faster than we do, while the Gasic take minutes to process new information. As the day of the event grew closer, tension increased. The team worked from early morning until late night, testing games with the few alien volunteers willing to help. One afternoon, John was adjusting the height of a table when he received another message from his olfaxy contact. The Recreation Council observers have arrived early. They are watching your preparations with great interest. Some are impressed by your attention to accessibility. Others remain skeptical of human intentions. John looked around the room and spotted several unfamiliar aliens in formal attire standing near the entrance. They were taking notes and speaking quietly among themselves. No pressure, he muttered to himself. That evening, as the team shared a simple dinner, John finally voiced the fear they all felt. What if this goes wrong? What if our games make humanity look bad? Susan set down her fork. Then we'll have failed our entire species. No pressure at all, Olivia said with a nervous laugh. Daniel looked thoughtful. Maybe we're overthinking this. Games are meant to be fun. If the aliens enjoy themselves, that has to count for something. John nodded slowly. You're right. We can't control how they'll interpret everything. We can only show them honest examples of human recreation and hope they see the value in how we play. As they prepared to sleep that night, the station lights dimmed to simulate Earth night. John looked out at the stars and thought about how strange his life had become. Tomorrow, aliens from across the galaxy would play Jenga and Pictionary and Pandemic, and somehow that might determine humanity's place among the stars. He just hoped they were ready. Game night arrived with a flash of light as ships from across the galaxy teleported near the station. John stood at the entrance, wearing his best clothes and trying to look confident. Inside, Susan, Daniel, and Olivia made final adjustments to their game stations. "Remember," John told his team as they gathered for a final huddle, "be friendly, explain rules clearly, and keep the games moving. If anyone seems uncomfortable, switch games." A soft chime indicated the first guests had arrived. John took a deep breath and opened the doors. Aliens of all shapes, sizes, and colors flowed into the room. Some walked on many legs, others floated, and a few rolled like wheels. Ambassador Zix, Tora led the procession, all four arms raised in greeting. "Welcome to Human Game Night," John said, bowing slightly. "We are honored by your presence." "The honor is ours," Zix Tora replied. "Representatives from 27 species have come to experience human recreation." The aliens spread throughout the room, examining the colorful decorations and game setups with curious eyes. Tentacles and sensory organs John couldn't name. "Let's begin with something simple," John announced. He led a group to a table where large wooden blocks were stacked in a tower. "This game is called Jenga. The goal is to remove blocks without making the tower fall." A tall, thin alien with 6-fingered hands watched carefully as John demonstrated. "You intentionally create physical instability for entertainment?" it asked. "Yes," John said. "The challenge is maintaining balance while creating change." To his surprise, the aliens took to Jenga quickly. Their different appendages created new challenges, but they seemed to enjoy the suspense. A ripple of something like laughter spread when a Moravian caused a tower to collapse. At another station, Olivia taught a group to play Pandemic, a game where players work together to stop disease outbreaks. "So humans create simulations of potential disasters as recreation?" asked a small blue alien. "Yes," Olivia explained. "It helps us practice cooperation and resource management." "Fascinating," the alien replied. "Though actual disasters could be prevented with proper planning and sufficient resources." Daniel ran the Pictionary station, where players drew pictures to help others guess words. "No, you cannot simply write the word," he explained to a confused Moravian. "The fun comes from trying to communicate visually." "But that is inefficient," the Moravian protested. "Exactly," Daniel said. "The challenge comes from working within limitations." The Moravian tilted its golden head. "Deliberate inefficiency as recreation. I must consider this concept." Susan managed the settlers of Catan Table, teaching aliens about resource trading and building settlements. "Remember," she told her players, "you can negotiate any trade that benefits both parties." A floating collection of crystals chimed softly. "So deception is permitted." "Not deception," Susan clarified quickly. "Strategic negotiation. Everyone knows what you want, but not what you're willing to pay for it." John circulated through the room, watching interactions closely. Most aliens seemed genuinely curious, some confused, and a few delighted by the games. But he also noticed the official observers taking notes, especially when humans showed competitive behaviors. During a particularly tense round of Jenga, Olivia let out a cheer when an alien failed to remove a block without toppling the tower. "Why do you express joy at another's failure?" a nearby observer asked quietly. "Oh, I'm not." Olivia began, then stopped. "I guess I was celebrating the excitement of the moment, not their failure specifically." The observer made a note without comment. Later, John found Ambassador Zix, Tora watching a charade session, where Daniel was enthusiastically acting out Elephant. "Your friend displays great physical energy," Zix Tora commented. "That's part of the fun," John explained. "The more expressive you are, the easier it is for others to guess." Some species might interpret such movements as aggressive territorial displays, Zix said carefully. John felt a knot form in his stomach. It's all in good fun, he said, but he could see several Vrilko observers shifting uncomfortably as Daniel jumped around. John Carter, a deep voice called. John turned to see a large, imposing alien with intricate patterns covering its skin. I am Minister Corvex, head of the Recreation Council. John bowed deeply. Welcome, Minister. Are you enjoying the games? They are. Not what we expected, the minister said. I would like to speak with you privately. Now. As John followed the minister to a quiet corner, he caught Susan's worried glance across the room. The night had barely begun, and already something seemed to be going wrong. Minister Corvex led John to a quiet corner of the station. The alien skin patterns shifted colors as they walked, from deep blue to purple and back again. Your games are unusual, John Carter, the minister said, voice rumbling like distant thunder. In what way? John asked, trying to keep his voice steady. They contain many contradictions. You create games of cooperation like Pandemic, yet also games where players must defeat others. You value both teamwork and individual victory. John nodded slowly. Humans contain contradictions, Minister. We compete and cooperate. Sometimes we do both in the same game. This concerns some council members, Corvex said. They question if a species with such unpredictable recreation can be trusted in delicate galactic politics. John felt sweat forming on his forehead. Games let us explore different sides of ourselves in a safe environment. The competition stays on the game board. The minister's patterns whirled thoughtfully. Continue your event. I will observe further. With that, Corvex moved back toward the main hall. John returned to find the game stations in full swing. More aliens had arrived, and the room buzzed with activity. But as he looked closer, he noticed new tensions developing. At the Settlers of Catan table, Olivia was explaining her strategy to a group of fascinated aliens. See, I built all my settlements near the brick resources, she said. Now no one else can get bricks easily, so they have to trade with me at high prices. A plant-like alien with leaf-covered limbs rustled in agitation. You deliberately prevent others from accessing resources. That's part of the strategy, Olivia explained. Resource control gives you an advantage. Among the Glishak, hoarding communal resources is a serious crime, the alien said, leaves turning a darker green. Olivia looked to John for help. He stepped in quickly. Different games teach different skills. This one happens to reward strategic resource management. At the charade station, Daniel's enthusiastic acting was causing another problem. The human is marking territory with aggressive movements, a Vrilko observer noted to another. This is concerning behavior. He's just acting out airplane, John explained, hurrying over. Physical expression is part of the game. The Vrilka's orbs pulsed doubtfully. Among our kind, such displays precede territorial conflicts. Meanwhile, at the Scrabble table, Susan was explaining her winning move. I placed quantum here, using your rue, and blocking this triple word score, she told a Moravian player. It's called defensive play. You trap your opponents by limiting their options. Trap. The Moravian repeated, golden skin dimming slightly. You use language to confine others. Susan blinked in surprise. It's just a term we use. No one is actually trapped. John felt the evening slipping away from them. Human gameplay styles, the trash-talking, the competitive edge, the strategic blocking of other players were being misinterpreted as signs of aggression or unethical behavior. He spotted Ambassador Zix, Cora watching from nearby, and approached quickly. We seem to be having some cultural misunderstandings, John said quietly. Indeed, Zix agreed. Many species are enjoying themselves, but several council members have expressed concerns about what they call predatory recreation tendencies in humans. Predatory, John repeated. We're just playing games. Games that involve blocking resources, territorial displays, and trapping opponents, Tora noted. From certain perspectives, these could seem aggressive. John ran a hand through his hair. What should we do? Perhaps focus on your purely cooperative games for the remainder of the evening, the ambassador suggested. But as John looked around the room, he saw the damage was already spreading. Species were starting to separate, some looking uncomfortable with human gameplay styles. The observers were taking more notes than ever. He needed to turn this around fast. Despite his earlier concerns, there was one human game that might demonstrate the complexity of human psychology better than any other. Get the poker chips, he told Olivia quietly. We're changing the plan. Poker, she whispered back. Are you sure that's a good idea? John watched as Minister Corvex consulted with other council members, their expressions unreadable, but their body language tense. No, he admitted, but it might be our only chance to show them who we really are. John cleared a large table in the center of the room. He arranged comfortable seats around it and set out decks of cards and stacks of poker chips in different colors. The chips weren't money, but they represented value in the game. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings of all kinds, John announced, his voice carrying across the room. I invite you to learn a traditional human game called poker. Curious aliens drifted toward the table. John noticed several council members, including Minister Corvex, moving closer to observe. Poker is a game of incomplete information, John explained as Daniel handed out small guides explaining the card values and hand rankings. Each player only knows their own cards and must make decisions based on limited knowledge. A Moravian raised a slender golden hand. This sounds like a simulation of information warfare. In a way, yes, John admitted, but it's also a study of psychology. In poker, we practice reading subtle cues from other players while controlling our own reactions. You mean deception, said Avrilka, its orbs pulsing with concern. We prefer the term bluffing, John said carefully. It's a skill, not malicious dishonesty. Let me demonstrate. He dealt cards to Susan, Olivia, Daniel, and a few aliens willing to participate. Ambassador Tora joined the table, along with a nervous-looking Moravian and 2 other species John didn't recognize. The goal is to make the best 5-card hand, or to convince others that you have a strong hand when you don't, John explained. The first few hands moved slowly, with John explaining each step. Most aliens struggled with the concept of betting on uncertain outcomes or concealing information from others. But why would I increase my wager when my cards are weak? Asked the Moravian after folding the 5th straight hand. Because if others believe you have a strong hand, they might fold better cards, John explained. That's called bluffing. The Moravian's golden skin pulsed thoughtfully. They continued playing, and John noticed something changing in the room. More aliens gathered around, fascinated by the psychological elements of the game. Even species who had seemed uncomfortable with human competition earlier were now watching with interest. During the 7th hand, something remarkable happened. The shy Moravian, who had folded every previous round, suddenly pushed forward a large stack of chips. I increased the wager significantly, it announced. The table went quiet. The Moravian's face remained perfectly still, its golden skin neither brightening nor dimming. One by one, the other players folded, unwilling to match the large bet. When the last player dropped out, the Moravian revealed its cards. A nearly worthless hand. I had nothing of value, it said, a hint of wonder in its voice. Yet I claimed victory through behavioral control rather than card strength. A murmur spread through the watching aliens. The Moravian looked around, its eyes wide with surprise. That was exhilarating. Ambassador Tora's skin rippled with what John recognized as amusement. You have experienced your first successful bluff, young one. How did it feel? Powerful, the Moravian admitted. I experienced the thrill of strategic deception without causing harm. The mood in the room shifted. Aliens began requesting to join the game. eager to try this strange human activity that explored deception in a safe context. To John's surprise, Minister Corvex approached the table. "I wish to participate in this poker game," the minister announced. John quickly gave up his seat. "Of course, Minister." As the game continued, John noticed the aliens becoming more engaged. They weren't just learning rules. They were discovering how poker explored complex social and emotional dynamics in a controlled setting. The minister proved to be a quick study, winning several hands through careful observation of other players. "I begin to understand," Corvex said during a break between hands. "Your species uses games to explore behaviors that would be problematic in real situations." "Exactly," John said, feeling hopeful for the first time that evening. Games give us safe spaces to experience different emotions and roles. As the night progressed, the stakes grew higher. Aliens began betting items of cultural significance or promises of scientific knowledge. The minister placed a small crystalline object in the pot. "This contains star charts for systems unknown to humans," Corvex explained. Susan looked at her cards, then at the minister. She pushed her entire stack of chips forward. "All in," she said quietly. The room fell silent as all attention focused on the showdown between Susan and Minister Corvex. John held his breath as Susan and Minister Corvex revealed their cards. Susan had a full house, 3 queens and 2 kings. The minister had a straight flush, 5 cards of the same suit in sequence. "The minister wins," John announced, his heart sinking. But instead of gloating, Corvex studied Susan's face with interest. "You knew your hand was strong, yet not unbeatable. Still, you risked everything. Why?" Susan smiled slightly. "Sometimes in poker, like in life, you have to take chances even when success isn't guaranteed." The minister's skin patterns shifted thoughtfully, a most human perspective. As the game night drew to a close, John felt cautiously optimistic. Many aliens were engaged in conversations about human games, asking questions and even suggesting variations. The initial tensions had eased, replaced by genuine curiosity. The next morning, John was summoned to meet with the Recreation Council. His team waited anxiously outside as he entered the chamber alone. Minister Corvex sat at the center of a semicircle of alien officials. The minister's expression was unreadable as John took his seat. "John Carter," Corvex began formally, "the Recreation Council has reached its decision regarding human recreational activities." John nodded, trying to look confident. "Humans are hereby banned from hosting official galactic game nights." John's heart sank. They had failed after all. But Corvex continued, "Your games contain too many elements that may cause psychological distress, diplomatic confusion, and resource allocation disputes among member species." "I understand," John said quietly. However, the minister added, sliding a document toward John, "The council has approved this addendum." John looked down at the paper. It read, "Unofficial human recreational activities will be permitted in designated areas with appropriate warnings. Participation by galactic citizens is voluntary, but increasing in demand." John looked up in confusion. "Increasing in demand?" "Since last night, we have received 47 requests from various species for private gaming sessions with humans," Corvex explained. "Many found your recreational activities stimulating, if somewhat unsettling." "I don't understand," John admitted. "If our games are problematic, why would anyone want to play them?" The minister's skin patterns shifted to colors John hadn't seen before. "Your species plays like our children before they learn proper restraint, but many of us have forgotten the joy and uncertainty. There is educational value in this." Outside the chamber, John explained the mixed verdict to his team. "So we're banned, but also in demand?" Olivia asked. "Something like that," John said. "We're too unpredictable for formal diplomatic functions, but apparently fascinating in small doses." 6 months later, John stood in his newest business location, a game cafe on Galactic Central Station. Above the entrance hung a sign in multiple languages. Warning: human recreational activities may contain elements of chance, competition, and emotional stimulation. The cafe had become both popular and controversial. Some called it a dangerous influence, others a refreshing change from predictable galactic recreation. Either way, it was never empty. One evening, as John was teaching backgammon to a group of Alfaxi youth, he noticed two cloaked figures enter the cafe. They chose a quiet corner table and ordered drinks. When John approached to greet them, the smaller figure lowered its hood slightly. "Ambassador Zix Tora," John whispered in surprise. "Please keep your voice down," the ambassador said. "The minister and I would prefer to remain anonymous during our weekly recreation." The larger figure, now clearly Minister Corvex, nodded slightly. "We find poker has certain applications in diplomatic situations. Understanding controlled deception has proven valuable." "Your secret is safe," John promised, hiding a smile. As he returned to the bar, John watched the many species enjoying human games throughout his cafe. Some played with intense concentration, others with obvious delight. A few were even trash-talking in their native languages. Humans might be banned from hosting official game nights, but they had accomplished something more important. They had introduced the concept of fun for fun's sake to a galaxy that had forgotten how to play without purpose. And judging by his busy cafe, the galaxy was quickly catching up.